Hello everyone, welcome to the Canada Truth Channel where Canada, the illusion of freedom and system of control is exposed. Today's video, truth before authority. That's what we need in Canada, especially Alberta, truth before authority. I've been working on a bunch of things. This document is one of them. The intent is to maybe hand them out at town halls and Alberta independence meetings, but like all of my material, this applies to all of the people in Canada and all of the provinces and territories in Canada. So let's go. What the BNA 1867, the Statute of Westminster, Orders in Council and Parliament never told you. Probably the biggest myth about Canada is Canada became a Commonwealth country in 1867 through the enactment of the British North America Act. The fact of the matter is, Canada in 1867 became a British colony, not a country. The British North America Act 1867 was passed by the UK Parliament. Canada remained under British control. This is evidenced by Section 3 of the BNA that created the Dominion under the name Canada. Section 9 establishing Queen Victoria's executive power. And through the Interpretation Act 1889, where the expression colony explicitly refers to the Dominion of Canada. Fact, the Statute of Westminster granted full autonomy to Canada and the provinces December 11th, 1931. Section 2 gave validity of the laws of the Dominion of Canada. Section 4, Parliament of the United Kingdom was no longer able to legislate for a Dominion except by request and consent. Section 7, subsection 1, Canada and the provinces were not granted authority to amend the BNA 1867. The authority remained with the UK Parliament. Section 7, subsection 2, the authority of Canada to create its own laws extended to the provinces. 3, the authority to create laws was restricted to the jurisdiction and competence of Canada and the provinces. And Section 11, the most important section, Canada and the provinces were no longer UK colonies. December 11th, 1931. The myth, in 1931, the Statute of Westminster automatically made Canada and the provinces independent and autonomous. The fact is the Statute of Westminster gave Canada and the provinces the right to become fully sovereign, but did not reconstitute Canada or the government. The people of the provinces were free to create their own laws to govern themselves and to federate with other autonomous provinces, unless Section 4 of the Statute of Westminster. UK laws would no longer apply unless Canada requested and consented to them. Here's a question from Walter Cool. I therefore pose this question: whence does the Dominion Parliament derive its authority to govern this country? The Imperial Parliament cannot create a federal union in Canada or constitute a federal government for the people of Canada by virtue of the British North America Act or any other act. Only the people of Canada can do this, and they have not yet done so. This was part of his speech in 1945. After the passing of the Statute of Westminster, December 11th, 1931, they didn't tell the people. Why would they not tell the people the most important legislation to ever happen to Canada? Because if Canadians knew, they would ask the one question no government wants to answer. And that's the same question that Walter Kuhl asked in 1945 and prior to that as well. Where did your authority come from? Excuse me. Canada's current federal government claims sovereignty and authority without ever having been authorized by the people of Canada, the provinces of Canada, any ratified constitutional convention. The federal government, created by the UK Parliament, was never reconstituted by the provinces or the people after the termination of UK Parliament and monarchy authority after the Statute of Westminster. The federal government unlawfully presumed authority to consent to continued UK legislative authority without any authorization from the provinces or the people. No lawful constitution refounding or popular ratification occurred to legitimize the federal government after 1931. The federal government acted in a conflict of interest by consenting to its own perpetuation as a sovereign authority in Canada. The letters patent of 1947 establishing the Governor General as de facto head of state were issued without lawful authority or proper constitutional procedures. All such actions are constitutionally invalid. So they didn't tell the people, and they pulled some shady stuff behind closed doors. And they knew very well what the Statute of Westminster did for Canada because they had committees on it. The Early Parliamentary Awareness Committee, 1935, on the BNA Act. So they knew right after the passing of the Statute of Westminster what it did, and it left them in a predicament because the central legislature no longer had authority of and over Canada. So during its hearings, prominent legal minds highlighted the constitutional gaps in Canada. I think we have to get away from the idea that the British North America Act is a contract or treaty. It is a statute and has always been interpreted as a statute. So, professor of University of Toronto in that report, page 69, I am thoroughly convinced it is not a pact or contract either in the historical or legal sense. Professor Rogers of Queen's University during the same hearings. It is quite true that if we apply British North America Act, the principles followed in the interpretation of statutes, it is not a compact between provinces. The privilege to federate was still a future privilege for the provinces. Dr. Bouchain, Clerk of the House, and that's on report, page 125. So what are the implications? Leading legal authorities stressed Canada's founding document was a unilateral statute, not a negotiated constitutional compact. They emphasized that only after the Statute of Westminster had provinces had sovereignty to federate, which they did not do, leaving Canada in constitutional limbo, which we still are today. Part of the special committee, their formal mandate, the committee was appointed on January 28, 1935 to explore the best method by which the British North America Act may be amended. And it explicitly sought input from the provinces on methods to effect those amendments. So even after 1931, the federal government was still clinging on to the British North America Act because that's where they got their power from, right? And they came up with these committees to try and solve these problems, especially because Walter Kuhl kept bringing up these issues in the House. From their report, the committee also communicated with the provinces to seek their views with respect to methods of securing amendments to the British North America Act. The provinces were not prepared to make either written or oral submissions to the committee. So despite being invited to contribute, no province submitted any feedback whatsoever, which again left the constitutional issue in limbo. The committee's concern. In its final report, the committee affirmed the urgent necessity for prompt consideration of amendments to the British North America Act. In respect to the provinces, the committee concluded that the opinions of the provinces should be obtained, and recommended that a Dominion Provincial Conference be held as early as possible. But without the provincial input, the committee refused to specify any amendatory procedure, hoping a future conference would resolve the inequities and ambiguities. Walter Kuhl, House of Commons, excerpts, 1938. I'm aware that the Statute of Westminster of December 11th, 1931 does not apply to this House, for nowhere does it apply to the central legislature of a colony. No Parliament of Canada can be created until there is a legal agreement signed amongst the provinces. April 8th, 1938. Governments have no source of income but from the people. June 21st, 1938. So again, more implications. Kuhl proved that Canada had never transitioned from colonial legislature to sovereign federation. He insisted that legitimacy depends on consent and not statutory assumption, which they were working under since December 11th, 1931. He brought it up again in 1944 in the House. I was going to draw a comparison between the federal constitution of Australia and what we have in Canada, but time does not permit me to do so. Therefore, I wish to conclude by asserting that we continued from 1867 to December 11th, 1931 as a united colony. That situation was changed on December 11th, 1931 by the Statute of Westminster. Whereas we were not self-governing, we became self-governing. But what was the position? The provinces were not able to federate in 1867. They were not permitted. They would have to draft their own agreement, draft their own constitution, and submit it to the people for ratification. They did not do that in 1867. The privilege to federate was therefore a future privilege, and therefore before the provinces could federate, the provinces of Canada were made, they must be free, independent, and sovereign. By Section 7, Paragraph 2 of the Statute of Westminster, the provinces of Canada were made sovereign, free, and independent in order that they may consummate a federal union, which they had wished to consummate in 1867, but were not permitted to do so. Since December 11th, 1931, the provinces have not acted on their newly acquired status. There has been no agreement signed between the provinces since 1931. There has been no constitution adopted. The people have not been consulted on anything. There is not a scratch of a pen in Canada showing where there is any agreement between any of the provinces constituting anything. July 3rd, 1944, Walter F. Cool, the OG Alberta independence proponent. Once again, in 1945, since the condition of sovereignty and independence must be enjoyed by the provinces before they confederate, it was necessary that the British government relinquish its authority over them. This was done through the enactment of the Statute of Westminster, December 11, 1931. By Section 7, Paragraph 2 of the statute, the provinces of Canada were made sovereign, free and independent in order that they might consummate the federal union which they wished to create in 1867, but were not permitted to do so. Since December 11, 1931, the provinces of Canada have not acted on their newly acquired status. They have not signed any agreement. They have not adopted a constitution, and the people of Canada have not ratified a constitution. Such action should have been taken immediately upon the enactment of the Statute of Westminster. It is by reason of the failure of the provinces and of the people of Canada to take this action that all the anomalies in our present position exist. We have been trying since 1931 to govern ourselves federally under an instrument which has nothing more than an act of the Imperial Parliament for the purpose of governing a colonial possession. Not only has this anomalous condition obtained since 1931, but it has done so without any reference whatsoever having been made to the Canadian people. They have not been consulted on anything pertaining to constitutional matters. Before there can be a federal union in Canada and a federal government, the provinces of Canada must be free and independent to consummate such a union. They have been free to do so since December 11th, 1931, but they have not done so. Legally, Canada is in a state of anarchy and has been so since December 11th, 1931. All power to govern in Canada since the enactment of the Statute of Westminster has resided with the provinces of Canada, and all power legally remains there until such a time as the provinces sign an agreement and ratify a constitution, whereby they delegate such powers as they desire upon a central government of their own creation. Since December 11, 1931, the Parliament of Canada has governed Canada on assumed power only. It is imperative that this situation be dealt with in a fundamental way. Patchwork methods will not suffice. He goes on to say, posing the question once again, I therefore pose this question, whence does the Dominion Parliament derive its authority to govern this country? The Imperial Parliament cannot create a federal union in Canada or constitute a federal government for the people of Canada by virtue of the British North America Act or any other act. Only the people of Canada can do this, and they have not yet done so. So once again in 1945. So they knew about all of this. Canada is still not federated. So Confederation in 1867 united 4 British colonies into one colony, the Dominion of Canada. The Statute of Westminster made those colonies autonomous states, but they were never reunited as sovereign equals under a new constitution. There was no new agreement, no public consultations, no provincial consultations, no constitutional conventions. So what did they do? They wanted to stay in power, and they slipped through the first silent shift. In 1947, the Governor General received new letters patent. Supposedly, these made the Governor General the de facto head of state in Canada. This new version of the Crown, the Governor General of Canada, as de facto head of state, was never ratified by vote. There was no vote, no parliamentary ratification, no provincial agreement, no consultation or consent from the people. And there are more problems. They, the UK and Canada, didn't and couldn't follow UK laws for issuing new letters patent. They had no lawful authority after the Statute of Westminster was enacted December 11th, 1931. The new letters patent weren't signed by the King. They weren't issued by a British minister on behalf of the Crown and Chancery. They weren't sealed with the Great Seal of the United Kingdom. There was no UK Privy Council involvement, no legal proclamation by the King. They were signed by the Canadian Prime Minister, Mackenzie King. A colonial central legislature rewrote the Crown's authority in Canada behind closed doors without legal authority or consent by the provinces or the people. So, a key question. Who consented to the British North America Act after 1867? The colonial central legislature, the federal government did, alone, through an order in council to request and consent to an amendment to the BNA 1867. So they snuck through an order in council, what they usually do when they want to hide it from Parliament and the public. And there was an amendment to the British North America Act, which they prayed and begged the King to enact the British North America Act number 2 in 1949. Once again, there was no public awareness, no vote, no referendum, no provincial ratification, and once again, a colonial central legislature rewrote the Crown's authority in Canada behind closed doors without legal authority or consent by the provinces or the people. So what now? What do we do with this information? We put truth before authority. We educate ourselves, use the links I provide, verify through examination, introduce these facts to others, show them, don't just tell them, show them. Discuss this during town halls and meetings and bring up these points and questions and anomalies. Challenge and question everything, including everything I present. Use the links and resource material, reference material that I provide to verify for yourself, and then show other people. And put truth before authority, ladies and gentlemen. We're in this predicament because we have put authority over truth. Thank you for watching, and please share this information. I'm going to make this document available. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do that yet, but the intent is if you're at a town hall or at a Alberta independence discussion or meeting, you can bring this material forward and show people right then and there. So once again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. I've been up to way more stuff. It's coming soon.